Hey, welcome to Graphic Policy Television GPTV. I'm Brett. In my hands is The Other History of the DC Universe, number 4. For those who have watched my previous reviews, it's not too shocking when I say that this is just... It's an unreal, amazing issue. I mean, I don't think there's been an issue that's been bad of this series. It's just... It's so goddamn good. So it's stories by John Ridley. Layouts by Giuseppe Camuncoli, finishes by Andrea Cucchi, color by José Villarrubia, lettering by Steve Wands. So this is book 4 of the series. It goes from 1992 to 2007, taking us through the history of Rene Montoya. Now, for those who don't know, the concept of this is Ridley is exploring the DC universe from the perspective of minority characters. So, like, Black Lightning was one. Katana's been one. A couple characters from Teen Titans was another. A Bumblebee, and I'm totally blanking on the guy's name. This one's Rene Montoya. Now, the interesting for me is, like, I was never a huge DC fan. I dip in every once in a while, kind of maybe read some major storylines, but it was never one that I, like, really followed a lot. So, Rene Montoya, my experience with her is, she was always just kind of like a backdrop character for the Gotham PD. She was a cop, like a good cop from what I can tell. And, I knew that there was a storyline at one point where she, struggled with her sexuality, of, like, coming out. But, like, it's not something I read. But, I know it happened, and I know she eventually becomes the Question. On just a very surface level, I kind of know her history. So what Ridley takes us through is through kind of her early years, joining the Gotham PD, the exploration of the Gotham PD through her perspective, her being closeted during this time, up and through the 2000s, where there's that exploration of civil rights and what we gave up after 9/11. I think the brilliance of this issue is it's not as much an exploration of the DC universe. It is a condemnation of the U.S. history from the 90s to the mid-2000s through the perspective of Rene Montoya. It is a shift of an issue in a lot of ways, and to say it's brilliant is an understatement. There is one person I want to interview over everyone else right now, and it's John Ridley. I would be a pig in shit to discuss and talk with him about his ideas and his views and how he's exploring, especially this series. So here's the brilliance of the series. So, obviously policing is huge right now. We're talking about, defund the police and how we need to reform the police, and really takes us back to the 1990s for that. He talks about the corruption within the Gotham PD, how there are police who look the other way, who look past civil liberties, and juxtapose that against what Batman does, who is an individual who bucks society, who bucks the law, who bucks judicial process behind a mask. And Rene Montoya is an interesting perspective to look at that because, not only is she trying to do what's right as a police officer, but she herself is wearing a mask. She's wearing a mask of a hetero woman, hiding her sexuality, growing up, hiding her sexuality in the police, and putting up with the bullshit that's slowly crumbling today. The white male perspective, that joking perspective that, you got to go ha 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 when someone says, hey, check out, that hot ass, stuff like that. The bullshit that I think a lot of us have, are understanding and many have been fighting against. So really use the issue to, like, really explore masks in a lot of ways. Whether or not it's sexuality, it's hiding behind a mask for justice, that pertains to 9/11 and how we gave up civil liberties and hid behind the mask of terrorism, and she looks at that as, like, it's interesting that society kind of caught up with Batman in many ways in the 2000s, the real world. We talk about Batman being a vigilante, and in many ways we adopted his techniques in the real world, whether or not we want to admit it. I think the other thing that's amazing is like I think your perspective of this series and at least this issue is really going to come from how old you are and where you grew up. Like I was very well aware of the LGBT movement in the 80s and the 90s. I've had members of my family who were gay who passed away from AIDS, and that's touched upon here. She talks about Arthur Ashe and his death, and it's an interesting thing going on now because you get that sense of history in it, that sense of the elder gay. I see a lot of people using that term, and we're seeing that debate now and discussion about that now when it comes to like pride events and what individuals think is acceptable at them, and many of them say your elder gays were in the closet. They died from disease. They literally sacrificed themselves to get to this moment, and respect that. And I think there's some of that here. Like we see Renee talking about Maggie Sawyer, another cop. She was from Metropolis, comes into the Gotham PD. She was an out lesbian at that point in time. And in many ways, you kind of see like the LGBT movement, kind of condensed in this, at least the movement from the 90s to 2000s condensed in this issue. So it's a fascinating issue, just an exploration of masks and hiding behind one in multiple ways, whether or not it's sexuality, what you do for a living, the masks you put on to get through the day, the masks you put on to do your job, dispense justice, all that. I mean, there are so many layers to this issue. There's so much to discuss. Like, I could probably go on for an hour talking about this issue. And, I mean, it's one where you just want to go and have a group to discuss and really just nail down bit by bit of what's inside. I mean, it talks about Cataclysm, the Batman storyline, which I read stuff here and there, but it makes a connection to Katrina and New York City in the 1970s, and these are connections I never even thought about. Cataclysm happened years before Katrina, if I remember right. Like I don't think it was post Katrina. If I remember, it was pre. And the idea of the government abandoning the city was such a foreign and shocking concept, but we saw that in many ways in real life, and I think we're now examining that history, that like Katrina wasn't a one-off. We see that over and over and over again of history, especially certain groups. I mean, it's just there's so many levels to discuss. I mean, the way he talks about the haves and have-nots in Gotham, like it's just a mind-blowing, amazing issue. I want to say this is my favorite issue out of all of them. I think this is an issue that pivots from a dissection of the DC universe to dissection of how comics reflect our real world, and in some ways sometimes are ahead of the curve, or reflect afterwards. Like this is the one that really kind of I think puts forth that comics is a worthy medium of entertainment and philosophy and discussion and reflection upon the real world, and is worthy of doing that, and it has a powerful ability to do that. Yeah, I mean, I can go on and on. I feel like I'm rambling at this point. The art is amazing as always. The comic doesn't feel like a not comic. It continues to be like a graphic essay. I think is the best way of putting it. The art is just fantastic. I mean, the fact that it takes place in the 90s, I get a lot of to me it evokes the 90s a lot. It's amazing. Like we get a Cataclysm here, we get the destroyed Gotham. It's another fantastic issue. I'm just blown away by this. I got sucked in. I sat down for a good 45 minutes reading this, and for me to take 45 minutes to read a comic is impressive. Like this is just thick. It's well thought out. It's dense. It's so intelligent, so smart, and just so amazing. Another just masterclass, and it's unreal. It's fantastic. This might be my favorite issue of anything of the year. Out now in comic shops, you can go get it. We got a link beneath this video. Put in your zip code, tell the shops near you. No shop, no problem. We have some affiliate links as well. They are affiliate links. We get a small percentage by doing that. You help support our site. And speaking of support, I want to thank you for watching. We always appreciate that. If you're into comics, if you are into DC, check us out every single day at graphicpolicy.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, all at Graphic Policy, keeping it nice and consistent. So until next time, keep reading those comics and keep it geeky. Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.